Welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast. If you're new, hit that sub button. We're here to give you great NFL content. Stay tuned.
Richard, let's take it to Green Bay. Minnesota stays hot. I don't think anyone saw this team being this good coming into the season. They wrote them off in the NFC North. I think a lot of folks thought the Bears were going to take over them, no problem. But now we have Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold goes crazy in the first half. He now says the fourth highest odds on DraftKings to win the MVP at plus 1,500. He's tied with Lamar Jackson. This is relatively unheard of, Rich. The Minnesota Vikings pull off a stunner on the road against the Packers. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, first off, I'm going to double down on what you said. We appreciate you fans, even the ones who don't agree with everything I'm saying, and think I'm crazy and absolutely totally offbeat, and then put in the comments. I accept all criticism, baby. I appreciate you either way. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate you subscribing and watching us. We try to give you the best content, honest opinion, accurate info. Every now and then we may slip up and say the wrong thing. We apologize, and we try to correct it when we can, but we appreciate you. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are an incredible story, Mitchell. You talk about a surprise. You talk about out of left field, and maybe not for the Minnesota Vikings fans, but for me, the way they're winning, and this became a lot closer and a lot more of a barn burner than I'm sure they wanted it to be late in this game. Jordan Love struggled early on, was able to find a little bit of a rhythm late, get some yards. He threw up some 50-50 balls that his receivers were able to come up with. Some they weren't. And Byron Murphy gave up a touchdown, then also got an interception on the 50-50 ball, got a forced fumble. But you talk about guys like showing up. Kamo Grudger-Hill with the interception. Shaq Griffin, the old Seattle Seahawk, had an interception off a tip pass or through the receiver's hands, whichever way you want to put it. But they're just playing with so much confidence. And Brian Flores has put a lot of pressure on teams with his scheme. Every week you hear another quarterback talking about how tough his scheme is to deal with. He's made some adjustments. He's got the right personnel, the right people in the right places. But Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell are a match made in heaven. And we said this earlier in the year. Sometimes it takes a little second to develop. It takes a second to get in the right scheme and the right place. And Kevin O'Connell did a great job articulating that point, that sometimes it's not the players failing the organization. It's the organizations that are failing these players. They don't have the right guys in place to develop, because these same players can be productive other places. So that means it's not the player. Maybe you're not doing enough to play into his strengths or understand his strengths and designing a scheme that allows him to flourish in that way. And I don't think we talk about that enough, both offensively and defensively. We talk about these top picks being busts, sometimes at the cornerback position, sometimes D lineman. Offensively, quarterback is obviously a big one, but in the wrong scheme, everybody can look bad. If you're sitting there and you're a man corner and you're in a zone scheme, and they're like, man, he's getting cooked. Well, maybe his IQ is different. Maybe he's a what do they call him? It's cat coverage. They call it cat coverage, because he'd be like, I got that cat, you got that cat. I got that cat, you got that cat. And some guys are better in that. Like, hey, I just need a guy to study that I can follow all week. I don't want to understand route concepts. I don't want to understand combinations. I don't want to understand all that. Give me the guy I have, and I'll stop him from catching the ball. I was a different kind of guy than that. I want the whole scheme. I want the whole picture. I'm sometimes going to steal a route that has nothing to do with me and intercept it for the game. And everybody's different, but you have to understand who you're recruiting, who you're drafting, and be able to design your scheme, if you're a good enough coordinator, to fit your personnel, and your personnel to fit your scheme. And Sam Darnold is the perfect example. 11 touchdowns on the season, leading the National Football League. Coming from Kyle Shanahan's system, where he backed up Brock Purdy and got a few opportunities to showcase his talent a little bit, but not a ton. But he showed a massive development, a massive step forward from what he was dealing with when he was with the New York Jets when he got drafted. It just was not the right situation, the right fit, the right offense, the right scheme, the right personnel, and he didn't succeed. Mitchell, people were calling him a bust. And now, if you go back in time and you erased all that and you said, "Hey, Sam Darnold was a top pick, and he's leading the league in touchdowns," you say, obviously, they thought he was a top pick. They thought the talent was there. They saw what people saw at USC, but now he has the supporting cast and Justin Jefferson. Addison had a really good game, a really good curl and go route for a touchdown where he dropped the dime on him. He has a supporting defense, just like a young game. He has a run game in Aaron Jones, who had a fantastic revenge game against the Green Bay Packers, who I don't think should have ever let him walk. Not for that price. There's stuff like that I don't understand, because it comes back to bite you in the butt. When you're sitting there, $1-2 million, homegrown guy who's played well in the playoffs for you, understands your system, understands your fan base. The fans seem to love him, embrace the culture. Like, it's so rare. Not that Josh Jacobs isn't a phenomenal back. He is a phenomenal talent. But you had a guy who is both a great receiver, a great running back, fits your scheme, understands your quarterback, blocks well. And now he had 22 rushes for 93 yards against you, 4 receptions for 46 yards. And he's doing Lambeau leaps with a Minnesota Vikings uniform on after the game. And don't be mad at him. He wanted to stay. And now his team is 4-0. You got a division rival that you just helped get better with a back you could have kept home. And that's one of those decisions I'm sure they'll look back on as a mistake.
Well, you talk about a good scheme fit and a good team fit. I mean, Aaron Jones was both of those things with the Green Bay Packers, and they let him walk. And we talked about it in our free agency recap midway through the offseason, Richard. We both were kind of shrugging like, okay, like you just said, Josh Jacobs, great player, bruiser, younger than Aaron Jones. I know Aaron Jones is a little beat up his last 2 years with the Packers, but how you can just let a guy like this walk out the door. And then you look at the other side, at Minnesota. All last year, they've got all these weapons, right? They go out and spend a high draft pick on Jordan Addison. They already got Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson's going to be coming off IR here too. But what they did not have last year is a running game. They relied heavily on Alexander Mattison. He wasn't the guy they thought he could be. And prior to that, they had Dalvin Cook, who we talked about off here, had his fumbling issues, had his injury issues, was one hit away from being out of every game, it seemed. And now they add a reliable veteran in Aaron Jones. And you got to sit back and wonder, man, you got a guy you can trust with the ball in his hands in the backfield in Aaron Jones. And then you got those wideouts. And now you just insert a game manager in Sam Darnold. The Vikings have been, objectively, I don't think there's much debate, the most dominant team in the NFL this year thus far. They've only trailed for less than 3.5 minutes all season, and they jumped out 28-0 on the road against the Pack. As a Lions fan, I'm nervous about this team because, like you said, they got Brian Flores. This defense stays humming. The Minnesota Vikings are a team to watch out for on a league scale, not just divisionally.
And this was a big game. But for all intents and purposes, this is a division game. You're in Green Bay. You're at Lambeau. Your team's 4-0 now. And now they got to continue. Now this is the standard. And they go to play a Jets team that's coming off a very tough loss. The defense has been playing really well. But a quarterback that was hit 14 times. So you talk about Brian Flores licking his chops and his defense licking their chops. They're going to continue. They're going to look at everything the Denver Broncos did, and they're going to do it again to the Jets. So this team could be looking at 5-0, and we're talking about a potential, like, we have to start talking about number 1 seed in the playoffs as they continue to go through their schedule, because they have favorable matchups.
They do. I want to move on here, Richard. We already kind of touched on it a little bit, but we
can't not touch on Xavier McKinney getting his 4th interception in 4 games. Mitchell leading the league, National Football League, in interceptions, and a lot of these are cover 2s. He just has such a great feel for the game, a great understanding, obviously great ball skills, and he's been one of their most underrated pickups this offseason.
No question. Xavier McKinney, The Giants should have never let him walk, but the Giants will continue to do Giants things.